All right, so yeah, welcome everybody. Welcome. Hello and welcome to the Inside Success UK voiceover workshop. A lot of people on here have been wanting the opportunity to actually get into like whole interest entertainment industry, and we've got a pioneer in the field right now for voiceover acting. I know a lot of people, like even peers here, I know that want to get into acting, whether it be in on stage or film or even voiceover acting. We've got a special guest who's been in a lot of different things and worked with big companies from BBC, ITV, Channel 4, worked in the productions such as Doctor Who. So I'd like to introduce Seroca Davis. Hi, how you doing? You there? Yeah.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm not too bad. Thank you. Thank you very much for taking time to, actually like be in the Zoom call today and yeah, like tell us about industry and what it is that you do. First of all, I'd just like to ask, so what is voiceover acting? Like, what is voiceover acting for those who wouldn't know? What is it? What does it entail?
So voiceover acting essentially is any type of acting that just uses your voice. So anytime you hear people's voice and you're not really seeing them portray a character, then that is a voiceover. So it can be from when you're watching a show and you hear somebody actually introducing the next show, that's a voiceover. Listening to radio and hearing people, radio adverts, that's a voiceover. Even down to being on the train and hearing the lady or the man tell you to mind the gap, that's a voiceover too. Obviously when you go into like Tesco or Sainsbury's and you've got the self-scan person that speaks to you, that's also
yeah. So when please insert your
full voiceover. So anytime you can't actually see the person but you can hear their voice, then that is essentially a voiceover. It can even be video games, down to video games or things like that. Animation, big animation movies, Shrek. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so that is voiceover acting, really.
Nice. So anyone can be a voiceover actor then, guys. Literally just anyone, just having a clear voice, being able to speak, because at the end of the day, that's what doing speaking. So what, like, how would, if for people who would want to get into voiceover, how would it work? Because as you said, compared to normal acting where you'd have to do like a whole audition and be face to face, casted and whatnot. Whereas voiceover acting, like, how would you go into that? Like, how would it work?
So it's slightly different because obviously, unlike acting, traditional acting, it's your voice that's doing the work for you. So the first thing that you need to do is get yourself a voice reel. So what a voice reel is essentially you being recorded doing different accents or doing different skits or whatever it is, reading different pieces of work. And then you kind of send that over to a voiceover agent. And if they like it or they like what you've done, then they'll sign you. But when you're going for an audition, it's your voice reel that goes to these companies. So they decide just by listening to your voice whether you're going to fit the brand for the product that they want to advertise.
Right, nice. So you being in that, you going into that, like you being a voiceover actor and whatnot, like what different roles have you played, and how did you manage to get yourself in these roles? Then like how did you manage to like come to these big companies, because this is a whole BBC and like knowing what to say and do to be in these environments. How do you manage to do that then?
So do you mean me being an actress or voiceover actress?
The transition in a sense.
Oh, okay. So I started acting when I was 10. So from a young girl. So I was doing child acting from I was 10. And I think when I was about 11, I got an animation TV series. So it was the show, I think we were speaking about it earlier on, called My Maths or Star Maths. So it was one of these shows that come on and it would teach like young people how to count and stuff.
Yeah, but I used to do it for my homework. Like you'd have to, I was saying earlier, the pen and the paper, and it's teaching you what to do and what to say and whatnot. So
So I had to do the voice for that. So I was only 11, and I remember, the car would come and pick me up from secondary school and take me to a studio in Ealing to go and record it. So from that, like the director was like, you know, you're really good at this, but obviously I was 11, so I didn't know how to get into that. And it wasn't until I did like a radio play that I really felt like I enjoyed it, because it's you using your voice to try and convey these characters. And I just found that more fascinating than the acting side of it, because it's your voice that you have to change in order to kind of portray a certain character. So, and I'd always heard a lot of people say you're really, really good at it. But again, I didn't know how you got into it. So then I did a play about 4 years ago, a one-woman show, and they made it into a radio play. And it won an award. And it was like, you know, a lot of people were saying, oh, the narration was fantastic. And I did the narration. So I thought, all right, I need to seriously take this a bit serious and try and get into it. So I just did a voice reel and sent it to lots of agents, but nobody got back to me because it's such a closed industry. Nobody.
Tell me about it. Literally, you go to an audition, you prepare yourself, psych yourself up, pump yourself up to go in the room, blast them away, and then they just say, "Oh, unfortunately, we're not able to." You can't I fully understand. So yeah.
Exactly. So I didn't get an agent, and I was a bit disheartened because obviously, you know, everyone had told me that I was so good at it. And then my friend, who actually does a lot of voiceover, he was kind of like, give me your voice reel and let me send it to my agent for you. Okay. And it's funny because his agent was one that I'd actually reached out to, but they didn't get back to me. And they got back to me and they said, we really like it. So it just showed me that this industry is very tight knit, and you kind of got to come in knowing someone. You know someone, usually they can kind of push your voice reel to the front. So yeah, and then I got an agent, and it's kind of just gone from there, really.
Oh, nice. So for people like, say for example, alright, cool. Like I've said, look, I want to be a voiceover actor now, and like, but I want to start training myself, like my actual voice, because like everyone has a different type of voice. You get what I mean? And then to fine tune it, like for example, you right now, even like the way I speak, I'm from ends in it, so I'm from Southeast London. Yeah. So like, I've been accustomed to talk a certain way, but how do you manage to, you know, prepare yourself for that, like actual going on audio, or how do you prepare your voice to, you know, be more refined, like work on diction, pronunciation, all of these words that they throw at me in school, like, do you get what I mean? How did you do it?
You know what? So the first thing I'll say though, like, you have to be yourself, because that voice, you know, your voice, this is your voice. And I don't know if you've been listening like a lot, especially Channel 4, and they're kind of advertising new programs. You hear a lot of voices that sound like us. London voices, they're not posh voices anymore. Nobody really wants that. They want the real voice. So the first thing to know is to be yourself. Don't ever try to put another voice on, because it will be clear that it's not yours. But I think in terms of like diction and pronunciation, I'm also an English teacher. So when I'm not acting on voiceover work, I'm always concentrating and telling my pupils, make sure you're speaking like this, and you know, you're using certain words. So I think I'm probably used to emulating that type of voice, but I also grew up in Tottenham, so I understand like that kind of, you know, London talk, because that's what I grew up around. So yeah, you have to be yourself, but diction is a major thing. Making sure that you're pronouncing your words. You know, voice warm-ups, tongue twisters, making sure that your mouth can actually get round the words, because I think sometimes we become quite lazy with speech. So we're not really using our mouths to get around the words. So just things like that, practicing those things. And once you've got an audition, making sure that you're prepared in that way. So you've done your voice warm-ups, and, you know, you've made sure that you've kind of read the script if you can, because sometimes you're not able to do that, so that you're familiar with it and you don't get caught out in that way.
100%. So you said you had to do voice warm-ups, and for anyone on here, for example, who would be willing to delve more into it, like, would you recommend a specific I remember like when being in drama school, I had to do a lot of tongue twisters, Sally sells seashells on the seashore, and the whole Peter Piper picked a pepper, pickled peppers, and all that stuff. So like, but like when you're actually doing it as a profession and getting paid for it, like, is there certain, like, I don't know, maybe let's say exercise you go about, or a certain type of training you would undertake in order to do that, or just
not really, you know, like those tongue twisters you just mentioned, the ones that I do, really, Unique New York, red lorry, yellow lolly, you know, all of those things. Look, I even said it wrong. I think it's red lorry, yellow lolly.
Red lorry, yellow lorry, red
Yeah,
lorry,
you
yellow.
know, so you do those. Also kind of moving your tongue around your mouth. So moving it around and, you know, sticking your tongue out, trying to touch your nose, spelling your name with your tongue. And you'll find when you do things like that, you'll find that your tongue starts to hurt.
Yeah.
And like there will start to hurt you. But it's because the tongue is a muscle that we don't really exercise. We just use it. We take it for granted. So doing things like that and kind of getting into the habit of, you know, if you get up and you do your morning stretches, just like you'd go to the gym.
Yeah.
You kind of got to look after your voice as well. I'll be honest, I don't do it every day. But I know if I've got a job coming up, then I make sure that I'm preparing in that way. Because you don't want to, you know, you want to be prepared. You don't want to get caught out.
Yeah, and then talking about getting caught out and talking about being prepared, what would you say like is the most, because like looking back at your actual rap sheet, like you have done a lot, and as I said before, you're well in the industry now, you're connected. So like what would you say like your most challenging role is, or the one where you felt like you most conquered or you achieved the most was like?
Yeah. So I think there's two that come to mind. I recently last year I did a BBC 1 drama with Steve McQueen. So I don't know if you know Steve McQueen, the director of 12 Years a Slave. You know, Oscar winning. He's won an Oscar.
Nice. Yeah, see, well, we all know what Oscar is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that I think was that was a job definitely that's up there with one that I would say is on top of my list, because I think he pushed me as a director in a way that I've never been pushed before. Because he's Steve McQueen in it, so he's worked with some big people, and again, as we said, he's won an Oscar. So he definitely pushed me in ways that I've never been pushed before. So I think that job for me is definitely up there as the best one. But another one I think that comes to mind is a one-woman show that I did where it was just me. So, and I had to be 14 different characters. So I think switching between 14 different characters and changing your voice, changing your posture.
That's 14. What does that entail? Because after a few voices, I've got like an archive of few voices. After those few voices, I've got the geezer, and then the African. After that, what do you go? Where do you go? 14 different voices.
In different ones, you might even do like a Mancunian one. You might do like, you have to switch it up, and you got to flip in between those characters, because there's some scenes in the play where both characters were speaking to each other. So you're flipping from Mancunian to say posh in like an instant. And I think that was it's got to be one that I feel like I definitely achieved, because I think when I got the role, initially when I went for the audition, I thought, let me just go for it, because I didn't think I'd get it. Okay. When I got it, the fear started to kick in, because I thought, oh my gosh, now I'm actually going to have to do this. Because I knew it was never something that I could not say, that I could say no to, because it probably won't come again, you know, an opportunity like that. So, but as you know, because you've done theatre before, I know we were speaking about that, you know, you get notes, don't you? The director will give you notes after a performance or something. And usually if you're in a cast of say 5 people, it's 5 people getting notes. But when it's just you, all the notes are going to you. So it's so much to take on. But, you know, having achieved that and, you know, getting really good reviews, I feel really proud of that job, because I didn't think it would be something that I'd be able to do. So yes, I'd say that those two are up there.
Right, sick. And you also spoke about with voiceover acting, having a passion for it, and obviously working with a lot of people. And as with anything you do, you have a passion, but like on the business side of things, you always have to go back to business. You get what I'm saying? Like, so how does voiceover acting work in terms of that side? Like, you say, for example, I don't know, getting a job now, someone wants you to do a voice of action. How would they now go about the transaction of it, payment? Like, what does voice of acting like entail in terms of payment and what?
So you have your agent, you have your voiceover agent, and essentially, as I said, they're kind of using your voice reel to push you for an audition or a part. So all of these briefs will come through. They might get a brief, say for instance, you know, we've got an Adidas advert. We need a young woman, black female, aged, say 30 to 42, but she needs to have like a kind of low husky voice. And then your agent will then say, okay, I've got 10 people that I can put up for that. Then they'll send your voice reel. you know, the casting directors and stuff will listen to it, and then they'll decide whether they like it. So then the next call I'll get from my agent is to say, you've got the role. And then I'll just have to rock up and do the part. But then where it comes with the money side, your agent kind of deals with that. So they're in control of working out what your fee is. You know, they will know whether the fee is not so good, so they will be fighting. So yeah, so that will happen, and then you'll get your, you know, you get your money, and yeah, and they'll fight for the best money for you. So that's how it works.